Welcome to the latest episode of First Word in Sport. How are you this morning, James?
All good, Luke. Thank you. You're a little bit colder here in London. Just one question this week, Luke. Can you play right back? And are you available to travel to Atlanta by Wednesday, 5 p.m.?
I mean, where do we even start with this, James? Who knew that Reece James was an injury-prone right back and his availability for this tournament would be questionable? Because it seems to me that Thomas Tuchel must have missed his injury report. And words fail me, honestly. He sounds genuinely shocked that James is injured yet again.
It's quite remarkable that you have a squad of 26 you're allowed to pick, and you pick originally two injury-prone right backs in Livramento and Reece James, as you say. And then you lose Livramento before the tournament, so you're lucky enough to replace him, and you replace him with a centre-back. And then you don't realise, you say that Reece James is injury prone and has been for years with hamstring injuries. And Kelsa Breezy's gone down after 2 games this time, not even 3. And there are rumours going around that he might not be available until the quarter-final stage of England get there as well. And then they play João Quanza right back, who's just not a right back. And then he goes down injured as well with an ankle injury on Saturday evening. What has Trent Alexander-Arnold done to Thomas Tuchel? It's quite remarkable, a player of his ability. Yes, he has got defensive flaws. Everyone knows that. But generally, when you need a goal or you want someone to break a play up, he is a generational talent. And it's quite remarkable that he's not playing for England in this World Cup.
Well, I think I heard someone sum it up nicely over the weekend with regard to this situation. And that is, you have Real Madrid starting right back, whether, obviously he's got loads of issues, and hasn't had not been an incredible season for him at Real Madrid, obviously. And who knows where his future lies at Real Madrid. But essentially, you have a right back who Real Madrid were desperate to sign. Question for you, James. Do you think Real Madrid were desperate to sign Tino Livramento, Jed Spence, Chalobah for the right back role? I mean, honestly, it's just ridiculous. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Or it is like, of course, Mourinho's gone there now, and they have fined Denzel Dumfries, the right back from Inter Milan. Now, he's a right wing back. And if you think Trent can't defend, well, go and watch this lad trying to defend because he physically can't. People have no idea. Obviously, I'm biased because I'm a Liverpool fan, but Trent Alexander-Arnold for 5-6 years at Liverpool was outrageous. Was just generally, he could run a game from right back, and not to even have him in your squad of 26 is just, it could come back to haunt them big time. Because on Wednesday, who are they going to play there? They're going to play Konsa or they're going to play Jed Spence? Those are the only two options now.
Look, Jed Spence, you got Trent, who has won Champions Leagues, won league titles, won the lot pretty much. You have Jed Spence, who isn't a first choice fullback for a team that has finished 17th the last 2 seasons. It's not always
There's
quite
nothing more we can say, really, is there?
I mean,
that's the thing.
And I have to say, it's not a case of, and there's an awful lot of after timing with this stuff, but we have been talking about this stuff for a long, long time. And, and the one thing I'd say about James is I remember when he got that new contract recently with Chelsea, I was absolutely flabbergasted that they gave him the new 6-year contract, a couple of months ago. It was just ridiculous at the time for someone so injury prone. It remains ridiculous. And when you see this sort of stuff, it really makes you question Tuchel. I mean, Tuchel comes across as, a very smart guy, clearly knows what he's doing. But I just wonder sometimes if they try and be too clever and overthink these things. And yeah, it just blows my mind, really.
I saw someone saying, like, if you look at Tuchel and you take away his Champions League win for Chelsea when Havertz scored, because Guardiola made some weird choices in that final, his 11 he picked, he wouldn't really be England manager, would he? Like his rapport since he left Dortmund, what's he actually really done? Tuchel failed at a few other clubs, kind of thing. So
Hold on. That makes him 10 times more qualified than Southgate was to be England manager.
yeah, well, I don't think Southgate wouldn't. I know Southgate played Trent, didn't he, in midfield, but at least he picked him in the squad, kind of thing. Look, it's going to come back to haunt him because I can't see Reece James, like hamstring, as we all know, it's not just a 1 week injury like a little on the ankle or something like that. It's a 2-3 week injury kind of thing. And he takes time to get back to it. It's going to come back and haunt England. And he can say it all he likes. He's made a massive error.
I'll say it to him blue in the face. I used to have hamstring injuries. Once you start having hamstring injuries, they never disappear. You're always conscious of them. It can happen any time. Like, it's so easy just to tweak it again and again and again, and they're never the same again. And Reece James will never, like the rest of his career, not have hamstring issues, which makes it all the more extraordinary. Elsewhere, anything sort of catch your eye on a? I mean, look, England got the job done. 2-0 wasn't a great performance, I don't think, but it's also tournament football, and it was important for England to get that win and to finish top of the group and end up in the half of the draw that they have done. You know, a decent effort from Bellingham. Obviously, he played a little bit deeper than he has done. I don't quite know what the answer is in terms of exactly where he should be playing in this England team. Obviously, Rice is to come back in. What do you think?
I think Tuchel will go back to his tried and tested. He'll play up front with Kane and they'll bring back Declan Rice on Wednesday if Elliot Anderson's fit. Even if Elliot Anderson's not fit, I don't think he'll go in with Bellingham in the midfield again. Not in a game like this. He's too conservative, Tuchel. Very conservative. I thought Marcus Rashford had a half-decent game. Not tearing up trees, but he looked more of a left winger than Anthony Gordon has done in 2 games. And it's quite telling that Gordon didn't even come off the bench as well. So I think we can pretty safe to assume that I'd imagine Rashford starts on Wednesday. Xhaka just doesn't look fit and it looks like he's falling off a cliff, but who knew? Overplayed as a kid and just hasn't. And he's a cheat, by the way. He fell down like an absolute sack of potatoes in the first half. Was it first half? Yeah, it was first half. And nothing said on commentary as per usual. He went down to booking. He just dived. And he's got a history of it.
He has a history for that, big time. He also has a history for going down looking as if he has a career-ending injury, only to pop back up 30 seconds later. I keep hearing he does have injuries that are ongoing, so it's not a case of having an injury, getting fit again. So the injuries he has at the moment are still affecting him in terms of what he's doing. So at which point you wonder what the value in having him in the squad at all is, if he's not fit enough to play, because his performances are way off where they should be.
Picking on a name, aren't they? That's all he's done, kind of thing. So yeah, they've got a few issues, but I think you hit the nail on the head when you said it's tournament football. It really didn't make a difference. Winning the group did, because as you say, we're in the half of the draw that is the easier side of the draw, kind of thing. If you look at England's perspective route to the quarterfinals, it's Congo on Wednesday night, and you look at Congo. I watched the highlights of their game against Uzbekistan. Just one thing, the Uzbekistan captain, the centre forward, I'm not going to try and pronounce his name. He looks like a heck of a good finisher, because his left foot over the keeper for his goal, and then he missed one. Well, he put one over the top of the bar in the second half, but it was an unbelievable attempt. And that first goal by Congo, by the way, how have they disallowed that VAR? It was just absolute nonsense. But Congo, yeah, Noah Siddiqui, the Sunderland midfielder, quite impressive again. He might be leaving. I think a couple of clubs might be interested in him in the summer. I know there's going to be a lot of movement of midfielders. We'll briefly come on to transfers later, but he's a good player. Johan Visa looks like he's won the lottery to play football at the moment. He was just looking like way out for his depth, but you just never know. He's one of those streaky players that might just turn up on Wednesday. England can't be happy. They're playing Congo, and then they have to, the big thing is they then could go to Mexico, in Mexico City, if they beat Ecuador. So that will be an extremely tough game up in altitude in Mexico City. Yeah, but tournament football, at the end of the day, who really cares? Just win games of football.
I still think they've got not a bad draw, all said and done. As you said, you've got Dominican Republic, Congo, then you'd have Mexico, which is tricky, but then you've got Brazil. I mean, you're never going to be worried about playing this Brazil team. This, it's name only, really. Obviously, they've got some, like Vinicius and stuff, but if you can't beat this Brazil team, you don't need to be worrying about winning this competition. Argentina looks solid. I'm not convinced it's a great Argentina team. And then you'd obviously have France. The key thing really was being the opposite side of the draw to France, Spain, Portugal, Germany, those sorts of teams. And, you'd face one of those in the final potentially. There's nothing that scary there. I think Mexico as you say, Mexico City, incredible stadium at altitude, could be tricky. But, as you say, tournament football.
And there is a lot of travelling for England. Like they stayed in Kansas, got to go to Atlanta Wednesday. Then they would have to fly down to Mexico, then fly back. There is a lot of travelling that. But Tuchel set up this team to be tournament football kind of thing. And the proof will be in the pudding in the next couple of weeks what happens. But yeah.
So just looking at the rest of the World Cup. So obviously last night was the first knockout game, last 32. We had Canada beating South Africa. One of the worst games I've seen all tournament. Obviously a very late winner for Canada. It's good for Canadian football, I think. They deserved to win, but it was just a dreadful game. But it's nice to get to knockout stages after that. Those group stages, which just seem never-ending. The third round of games, I just don't think it was great for the tournament in terms of that third place. All the permutations with that third place in terms of the top 8 qualifiers and all that sort of stuff, it all became a bit of a nonsense. And actually, you had that weird game, Austria, a couple of nights ago, where they were literally just passing side. You were watching it, and they were literally passing it against Algeria. They were passing it. I can't remember too many times where, for almost 15 minutes, a team is literally passing it side to side to side to side, and the other team's just sat back off them. It looked like they're both set for a draw before Mahrez scored late on, only for Austria to equalise again with seconds to go. But when you see games where teams are doing that sort of stuff, obviously it had a dramatic finish, but it's not great for tournament football in terms of the format. It seems
you either have 32 teams or 64 teams. Don't have in-betweens kind of thing. When it even came to head when you had Norway versus France, and Norway clearly decided they wanted to go one way in terms of they wanted to play Ivory Coast, and then in the last 32, rather than playing Sweden and Germany, I think they want to play Ivory Coast and Brazil, wasn't it? I think they're playing, or whatever. I can't remember who their thing is. But they made 10 changes against France and went, nah, we might not beat them as our first 11. Let's rest the players. The game means nothing to us, and we kind of want to go the other side of the draw. And yeah, talking of the French, they've got some unbelievable talent. Like, I like the little change that Deschamps did in the first half time of the first game when he moved Elise behind Mbappe and they moved Dembele back to his old position on the right-hand side. And he scored a sensational hat-trick on, was it Friday night? I think it was Friday night. Right foot and 2 left foot goals. There's not many players out there, by the way, who can do that. You count them on one hand or one finger at the moment, how good it is. It is remarkable. And I still can't get my head around how footballers can't kick with both feet. I just don't get it. But there you go. But we've never seen France up against anything in this World Cup yet. So take a pinch of salt how good they actually are. They're not being tested defensively. I still have huge question marks over Upamecano. I'm not Saliba's biggest fan in the world. And the keeper, Mike Manigan, doesn't look top class. There isn't a top class keeper at the moment really in France. So they still have some question marks. They've still got Luca Digne, who's the left back. So we haven't seen him play anyone yet. So let's see. But they do have some outrageous talent. and they're always going to score goals, and they've got pace and a lot of it.
So I think Dembele is interesting because he was coming into this World Cup with that horrendous record of never having scored a World Cup goal from so many appearances. And he obviously got one in that second game. And it's almost as if the world has been lifted off his shoulders and then just gone, a confident Dembele in this World Cup. There's a reason why Paris Saint-Germain have won back-to-back Champions Leagues, and he's a massive part of it. He is a winner. He scores crucial goals, and he just looks absolute quality when fit and confident. And as you say, I mean, the crazy thing for France is they have what 6, 7 quality attacking players, and you look at someone like England, and they've got Harry Kane and obviously Bellingham, but there isn't. You don't look at the rest of that England lineup, and they're not fit to lace the boots of this French team.
Got guys who can score goals from outside the area a lot as well, as we've seen already this tournament. And whatever it will be with the ball or whatever it is, altitude or how hot it's been out there or wherever it is, air conditioning. Yeah, they're going to be a threat, but they played no one. So we don't know how good they actually are under pressure. But yeah,
So
they've been fun to watch, to be fair to them.
So just going back to, obviously, we're into the last 32. So in terms of that first group stages, there weren't that many real shocks. I think Turkey not making it through would be regarded as a bit of a surprise. Same with Czech Republic. Uruguay, disappointing. And then probably South Korea would be the other one. But all said and done, there's not been any major casualties in there. And that's part of the problem with that group stage is that there isn't real jeopardy. And that's why it feels like the tournament hasn't really got started in earnest yet.
You're not counting Scotland in there?
Who?
Oh, I did take great pleasure. Look,
No
and
Scotland,
Steve
no
Clarkson
party,
obviously-
James. No Scotland, no party.
Like, people are asking me over the weekend, are you not ashamed that Scotland went out? No, they would, as an Englishman, they wouldn't want England to go through at all. Look, Steve Clark's gone out and they didn't deserve to go through. They beat Haiti 1-0 with a deflected John McGinn goal. They lost to Morocco and they lost to Brazil. And you sent me that stat about Scotland in the Brazil game. Do you want to tell everyone?
I can't remember what it was now. 2% or something in the Brazil half?
They were in possession in the Brazil half over the entire game for 47 seconds of the ball they had, Scotland. 47 seconds of the ball they had, Brazil's half, across the two halves, or 4 quarters, shall we call it now. So, yeah, they deserve to be on the plane back to Glasgow or Edinburgh, wherever they flew back to. But yeah, there's no jeopardy on some of those games. And as you say now it's the last 32, and there's going to be extra time and penalties. It will be worth watching now because of things like this. They know that it's sudden death.
I do think the tournament, certainly from a UK perspective, so I've obviously been doing some work on it, so I've been watching most games, and I'm particularly tired, and I think I've almost had enough of it. But I know when I speak to people at like my daughter's football, and these are people who love football, like they have season tickets at Premier League grounds, and there's a feeling at times that they just haven't quite got into this World Cup yet because of how late all the games are. Just watching highlights here and there, it isn't the same as watching every game. And it may be different now the knockout stages have come, but I do just get this feeling that a lot of people just not quite into this World Cup from a sort of a UK perspective.
Yeah, because of the European time zone, that's the biggest thing. Right. If it was on the European time zone, it'd be a game at 1, 4, 8, things like that. You have 3 or 4 games a day that you can watch, and now our games, it's just all over the time. But at least we've got sensible ones this week, starting with Brazil, Japan this evening, 6 o'clock UK time, and then Germany play Paraguay at 9:30. And then the actual game I'm really looking forward to today or tomorrow is actually Netherlands versus Morocco. Obviously, the Dutch are really playing half-decent football, scoring a couple of good goals here and there. And Morocco, we know what they're about. World
I
number
think
7.
Morocco are good.
Yeah. So that'll be a fun game to watch. But again, it's 2:30 in the morning here in the UK, so it's it can be a tough watch, that one here. But yeah, it will
The-
be now.
I
And
mean,
less games on as well.
there are some interesting sort of last 32 games. Y- I mean, Mexico, Ecuador obviously would play the winner of England, Congo. That's not an easy game for Mexico. That one, Ecuador look like they're pretty reasonable. Belgium, Senegal. Belgium they look poor. They look old. I mean, they were good value for their win the other day, but still not great. Senegal haven't been a team who we saw in the African Cup of Nations.
Senegal playing with 10 men though. Sadio Mane is just a statue. Just absolutely. And they're not playing in Ndiaye or Ndiaye from Everton because they're playing Sadio Mane and he's playing all the games. He can't run. There's a reason why he's playing in Saudi Arabia and Bayern Munich binned him off those years ago. Can't run. It's hurting these teams. And there's another team.
And DA is an unbelievable player, by the way.
Yeah. And they won't play him at all because Sadio Mane is a captain and a national legend, etc. It's going to hurt them. And another team is going to hurt. We all know about Ronaldo, Cristiano Ronaldo. He can't run. He's saying, I'm back, I'm back. You beat Uzbekistan. Who? Like, he was damn right poor again. And Roberto Martinez has to be one of the biggest chances going. Terrible, terrible manager. Sacked by Wigan, sacked by Everton, ruined Belgium's generational squad, and now gone to Portugal with some unbelievable players they've got. Bruno Fernandes, Vitinha, João Neves, Felix, Pedro Neto, and he continually plays Mendes at left back, the world's best left back, and it continually plays Cristiano Ronaldo up front. It's becoming an absolute joke. They'll go out because of him. It's just utterly ridiculous that he continued to play him and Sadio Mane. It's just nonsense.
It's certainly a tricky game for them against Croatia. Although Croatia, each time I've seen them, they look really, really average. I mean,
well, Luka Modric has shown his age, but who knew at 40, 41?
They do. It's very easy to label a team a certain way on the basis of a player like Modric. So it's very easy to get, Croatia look old and slow, but Croatia look old and slow. But yeah, no. So there should be some good games in these knockout stages, and be fun to watch. Only other thing I would mention is, we've talked about refereeing and VAR. Certainly been a few cases in this last week where some pretty obvious penalties and stuff not given. I think they weren't given on the field, haven't been overturned. I don't really know why. Some pretty clear and obvious penalties, and if it was in the Premier League, we'd all be talking about them, saying, why was this not given? Maybe it's because the Premier League has decided to get involved with everything. And, one of the problems you have with the Premier League is that they set a precedent by getting involved with everything. Once you start... So, you only had to look at the goal that Brazil, Scotland, the second goal, which got disallowed. There's a little foul on the defender before Brazil scored, and they got overturned by VAR. And you look at it and go, well, sort of Premier League standards, that's a foul that gets given all day. But then you see other incidents in this World Cup, as I say, and they're clear fouls, and they haven't been given. So the only worry I have is that inconsistency. But as a general rule, I prefer it when they don't just keep giving penalties for, here, there, and everywhere. But it's something to keep an eye on, because I'm not sure. I'm waiting for a moment when VAR gets involved with something that they haven't really done previously. That tends to be the benchmark for these things.
Absolutely. It's almost seems to me a bit of a directive not to get involved as much as can. Let the game flow and not waste 2 or 3 minutes that we see in the Premier League, or 4 or 5 minutes. Because if you find one incident, you can go back and find another incident and you're over-analysing it. I think there has been some sort of directive from FIFA. Probably we've not been told about it, but it seems that way. One good thing is, as you have mentioned, is the semi-automatic offsides, where the assistant referee, let's get their names right, not linesmen, absolute nonsense. But anyway, have put their flags up because they're getting buzzed. They're getting told, aren't they? So it actually makes the game better, and there's no argument. I did see Wayne Rooney complaining about the offside goal on the weekend. The guy was clearly offside, and he's going, get rid of VAR, get rid of VAR. That's not what it's
Which
for.
goal was that? The Iran goal.
Yeah, the Iran goal, yeah.
Okay, so I think what was really interesting with that goal is there's an awful lot of pundits out there who have embarrassed themselves in terms of not knowing the rules, and not realizing what the situation is in terms of goalkeepers and the offside rule. And, so many people are utterly outraged at, the decision made and just not understanding the rules. And, from people who should know better, but clearly don't.
Talking of pundits, I got given a clip of Ben Foster on his Cycling GK podcast over the weekend, claiming England should have played Anthony Gordon right back against Panama for pace. They're not going to need to defend and get him in the team. Where's that tongue in cheek? I don't know. But anyway, some of these pundits, yeah.
Talking pundits, James, honestly, the one who when I hear his dulcet tones, I think, oh my God, not him again. Dion Dublin, give me strength. Honestly, he needs to go back to Homes Under the Hammer or whatever he was doing. It's just ridiculous. Absolutely stealing a living. But yeah, all said and done, all fun and games, World Cup. And yeah, we'll see how these knockout games go, and we'll obviously do more podcasts on the back of them. Anything else, World Cup?
I think Argentina are going to be very hard to beat.
Just quickly, in terms of Argentina, I did read a story just this morning about Martinez. Obviously, before the Europa League final, he broke his finger. He broke one of his fingers, and there was some chat whether he would be okay to play. He played on, but what's transpired is quite not a nasty break, but it wasn't a simple break, and he's still bothered by it. Hasn't been training with the Argentinian squad. He's just been doing some work away from the main squad. Still has a splint on it, causing him still quite a few issues. So, obviously he played in the group stages, didn't have that much to do, but given what an important player he is for that Argentinian team, it's just something worth keeping an eye on.
It won't have much to do this week. He's playing Cape Verde Islands, and then they could play Egypt or Australia. So I'm not sure he's too worried about that. And then they could play Colombia in the quarterfinals. They have a very, very easy route to semi-finals. And as discussed, if they go 1-0 up, they are extremely hard to break down and beat.
So, James, when Emi Martinez goes back-to-back World Cups, when he gets back-to-back Copa Americas, he's won his Europa Leagues, he's won a lot apart from Champions League, James.
And the Premier League.
Where's we're not thinking too many details. We're talking big stuff, James. Just cementing his status as one of the best of his generation.
Are you going to admit that Cristiano Ronaldo can't lace Lionel Messi's boots or not?
Was this the Messi who scores free kicks in the middle of the goal? I mean, you asked at the start of the show, if I could play right back, can you play goalkeeper? Judging by, some of the goalkeepers in this tournament.
Yeah, it's been a poor tournament for goalkeepers.
But anyway, yeah. So we'll touch more on obviously the rest of the World Cup as it progresses. Hopefully, it'll get a little bit more exciting for everyone going forward. Let's touch on transfers, as we like to do. Transfers are always of interest. I did have to chuckle last night, James. I sent you the message that Mr. Ornstein broke the news that Diomande wants to play for a big club. He's not interested in playing for Liverpool. He wants to play for Paris Saint-Germain. We've touched on this between ourselves in terms of what it must mean at Paris Saint-Germain is that one of their front four must be leaving, or you would think they would be leaving. You can't have 5 superstars for those positions, I don't think. And, I think it'd be Barcola will probably leave. But an interesting signing for Paris Saint-Germain and, potentially disappointing for Liverpool.
Yeah, all the noise, isn't it? The last 6 months, Liverpool have made him their number one transfer priority for the summer. And they didn't just bid whatever they bid 10, 11 days ago without some sort of acknowledgement from the player and his agents and his family and friends that, yeah, he wanted to come. Things obviously changed. Liverpool never made the second bid by all accounts, and Paris Saint-Germain have gone in. But yeah, Barcola looks like the one he's going to leave. I saw they sold Carlo Ramos to AC Milan last week as well to get rid of some wages and some money as well, Paris. So he looks a real talent. He's 19. I'm not that surprised. As soon as Paris Saint-Germain come in, Liverpool kind of not anywhere near as good as Paris. He wants to go and live in Paris. It's a nicer city than Liverpool for him as an individual. He's
It's a
going to
brave
work
shout,
under...
James. A brave shout. Paris is a nicer city than Liverpool to live in.
But I'm just saying, like, he's going to work under a proven manager, Luis Enrique. He's going to play with the likes of, as we know, Dembele, Dure, Kvaratskhelia, et al. So I'm not surprised he's going to go there. He's probably going to get the best part of 250 grand a week. It's an easy league. Going to reigning back-to-back European champions. Fair play to him. Liverpool move on. They'll have other targets. They're probably looking at Barcola. I'd imagine that Arsenal and others are looking at him as well. I wouldn't be surprised if Liverpool go down to the South Coast and go and knock on a door in Bournemouth and say, how much is Ryan worth? How much are you willing to part with him?
Well, I think coming back to Barcola quickly, when I talk about a myth of a football, you might talk about a myth of a footballer. I struggle to remember him. I hardly ever see him play well, honestly. I know he has a bit of pace, and even in the game against Arsenal, the Champions League final, I mean, obviously his pace got him into a couple of good positions, but, wasteful in the end, a little bit unlucky with one of them. But I don't know, I just never see him consistently perform at that sort of level for the amount of money you're talking.
And also, I have concerns about he is a natural left winger. Natural, but he plays off the left. And Liverpool have already got Rio and Gamera there. And they've also got these Victor Munoz.
Hold on. You've already got a player for your left wing, James.
Oh, Florian Wirtz will play off there as well.
You're doing great disservice to Cody Gakpo.
Oh, he's going to North London by all accounts, hopefully. Anyway, I know what I mean. But yeah, so I don't think they'll go to Barcola. I'll be surprised because he can't play off the right. He's not the same player off the right. So yeah, it's a shame, but Liverpool move on. You can't always buy your first choice targets, but...
So one deal that has been done since we spoke was the Anderson to Manchester City deal. It's interesting in as much as it's been done whilst he's actually out in, I think he was in New York at the time, had, medical when he was out there, things like that. I guess for the player, it takes a weight off his shoulders. Man City are happy to get that tied up. A couple of aspects to it. It is a lot of money. It's a massive deal. When you add in the transfer fee, the reported £300,000 a week wages, it's just, you're talking about more than a £200 million deal for Anderson. And I've said before, there's little question marks I have is, in everything I've seen from him, yes, I think he's good, but is he great? I questioned, but we'll see. And, he's got opportunity now in a potentially great team to, there can be no excuses for him. He's going to have quality players around him, and we'll be interesting to see how he does.
I watched him on Saturday night and didn't think he was a £116 million player. When he should take the game by the scruff of the neck and go, give me the ball, I'll dominate this game, and you won't get the ball off me, and I'll dictate pace and dictate this. Doesn't do it. He's also a bit of a headless chicken as well. He runs around, vacates his space an awful lot, leaves space open. He's a good player, but the thing is, 300 grand a week, as you say, for a 5-year, 6-year contract. If he does progress and he's improving their winning stuff, etc., he's going to want another contract in a couple of years. and then another contract in 4 years. So suddenly you could be paying him 400, 450 grand. It's an enormous transfer fee for a player that's, let's be honest, made his England debut in September, October last year, hasn't played in the Champions League, and 2 years ago or 3 years ago went for £15 million, essentially. He's unproven at the top level. He really is. It's unbelievable transfer fee. There's only one club that could really afford him, that's Man City, who
Well,
Maresca looks
I
like he's
mean,
going to be.
look, let's we have to say it. We have to talk about it. You know, obviously, City got these charges hanging over them, 115 charges. Hopefully, we're told that we'll hear something soon. You know, from a Man City perspective, obviously they've carried on business as usual, assuming that they're going to be free of any issues. But I'm intrigued by this scenario, James, where let's say they are found guilty. Let's say the punishment is them not being a Premier League club. How that pans out or plays out with all these transfers, I'm intrigued because let's say you've just spent that money on Elliot Anderson. You know, you got him for a massive amount of money for a 5-year deal. Let's say you get, you're relegated to Championship or lower. What then happens? Like to your Andersons of the world, is he really going to play Championship football? Is he going to play? I mean, I don't know. I'm intrigued by it.
I just don't. I think they'll get off. I really do. I think they'll get off because surely these players are going to him like an Anderson or Maresca. He's been appointed. We know he's working out at the moment, all but name. Surely that's the first question you ask. What is going on with these charges?
Yeah, but they have to say from their point of view is they'll feel compelled to say we're not guilty.
Yeah.
Like, business as usual. We'll get found not guilty. But it's interesting to me because I can't imagine there's provisions in their contracts that enable Man City to play them less if they were to get relegated. At which point you then run into all sorts of, the revenues and everything, wage bills, everything gets massively thrown out of kilter. And, it'd be a disaster for City.
And on that point, they have to make an announcement before the start of the Premier League season. They can't go into another season where everyone's still talking about it and then you announce it mid-season. You can't do it mid-season where you suddenly go, there'll be 30-point relegation or things like that. It's just nonsense. Make your decision. If you don't make it, then make it next season. But you can't make it mid-season. It's a stain on the Premier League at the moment, and it's a lack of management to get the thing done. Now, obviously, we don't know what's going on. Lawyers jamboree, it's whatever. But for the actual sport and for the product of the Premier League and for the other teams involved, you have to make the decision before the start of the Premier League season on the 21st of August. So less than 8 weeks, 8 weeks' time.
I think the problem is it's not questioning the Premier League having to make a decision. So they're waiting on the lawyers. But what they should have done was insisted that things were done by a certain time, if possible, and that they, are able to come to reach a decision between seasons per se, to try and avoid some of the situation. But I'm sure it'll rumble on. Obviously, there's been lots of chat about Tonali to Spurs, to Arsenal, to others ongoing. I think, there was some chat this week about Bruno to Arsenal. It was a very weird story. It was, Arsenal have a habit of doing this in recent years where it's almost like a throwaway token offer. Oh, we had a bid for Bruno. We thought about having a bid for Bruno at a derisory amount. It reminded me a little bit of the Ollie Watkins situation last year, actually, where nothing sort of came of it. But you're unsettling the player. You're unsettling the fans. I mean, we've touched on it with Newcastle that I thought both Tonali and Bruno would want out. Now, Newcastle are in a situation where they can't let both leave, I don't think. They may have no choice. I think Bruno will probably stay out the two. But it's not good times for Newcastle.
Yeah, £60 million for Bruno Guimaraes. I know he's 28, 29, isn't he, like this, but that's derisory. That's just, if you're talking Elliot Anderson, what he is, 120, 116, 120. Bruno's £100 million player. So, yeah,
Well,
not good times for Newcastle at all this summer, because if they lose both those two, and along with Gordon gone as well, who do you replace him with? And if you look at that's the problem. Who's going to want to go there and play? You're not playing in Europe. You're going to struggle to finish top 5 next season as well. Question marks over Eddie Howe. I'm very surprised he's kept his job there as well this summer. And there's question marks about the Saudis, whether they're going to actually continue their investment into sport across other sports across the globe.
yeah, I think some big decisions for Newcastle, because one of the problems you have is these players like Tonali and Bruno, they were signed as big money sort of players who, um, these weren't players they signed for 20 million and sort of developed them to be like into the quality players they've become. These are ready-made quality players they signed. These are the players who were going to take Newcastle to the promised land when the owners came in, and they were they were going to challenge for for titles and all sorts of things. And suddenly, if you lose these guys, it becomes incredibly difficult to replace them. So we just touched on there. So let's say Bruno at 60, 70 million. We've seen almost impossible for them to replace him. You'll see people like Curtis Jones linked with them, and probably 30, 40 million pounds or whatever. And other sort of players like that. But I don't know. I think they're impossible to replace, and all you end up doing is you just reduce the quality of your squad so much so quickly. I saw they were linked with that Manzambi, the midfielder, for, was he Switzerland? I think he is. He's quite an interesting player, but he would cost them best part 40 million. He's only young, but he's not ready. He's not a ready-made replacement for your Tonalis or your Brunos. So I think it's really, really tricky for them to find replacements. One thing just quickly with the Anderson stuff is it sets a benchmark for other transfers this window. So when you look at people like Morgan Rogers, I know Arsenal fans are thinking that 80 million pounds would be enough to get Morgan Rogers. No. If Elliot Anderson's 130 million, if I was Villa, I'm not sure I'd accept any less than 130 million, honestly, that Anderson's going for. That's the benchmark for a homegrown English young midfielder. So we'll see. The other big
It's like
news.
Adam Wharton, isn't it? Liverpool aren't going to spend £100 million on Adam Wharton at all in any stretch of imagination. So they price themselves out of moves, kind of thing. They're talking about, if Newcastle were cheeky, they won't get him. But Noah Siddiqui or Sunderland, briefly talked about it earlier, they'd be the players going to replace him when Bruno or Tonali goes, they both go. But it's never going to happen, obviously. Talking of Sunderland, an interesting one.
Can I just say, James, that was beautiful the way you did that.
Yeah, talking of Sunderland. Fun story, interesting story is obviously the Granit and Xhaka potentially going to Chelsea this week. Obviously, you got end of financial years tomorrow, 30th of June. Wonder if that goes through. And then I was on the way down to go and watching a game. And then I realised, obviously, he'd played with Xabi Alonso at Leverkusen. And he was very successful there for a couple of seasons under Xabi Alonso. So he probably knows him. He wants some experience. We've talked about it. That Chelsea team is lacking leaders, lacking experience. And it'd be an ideal signing if you think about it. In a 3-5-2, a 3-4-3 that Alonso will play, he's playing once a week. There's no European football. Doesn't need to play League Cup. FA Cup obviously starts in January next year. It's a clever signing if it goes ahead.
Well, it'd be one of the few Chelsea signings in recent years where you go, that looks sensible. It looks like, not a perfect signing for them, but not far off. I mean, for Sunderland, it's interesting. So if you read any sort of Sunderland forums, the fans are angry, and part of the problem is players bring this on themselves, where they tell everyone how much they love the club, how much it means to them, and all this nonsense. And a bigger club comes along, get an offer, and it's bye bye. And the problem for Sunderland is he is a true leader in that Sunderland squad, and I would worry for Sunderland. I was quite hopeful for Sunderland next season, even with Europe. With him, Siddiqui in the middle of the park, Diarra, but you take Xhaka out there. We often talk about things like standards and setting a proper example. And I just would worry for Sunderland a little bit, particularly when they have they have European football as well to have to play. But I think Xhaka, he'd been an enormous loss for Sunderland. And I think it'd be a good signing for Chelsea, unfortunately.
It sounds like Xavi Alonso has obviously got more say in transfers. That's probably why he's gone there, and he's gone, I actually want the player. Because there's no way, if Rosinha was never going to be in charge, but saying a Maresca or someone like that was in charge, there was no way in this planet they were going to buy Granit Xhaka, sorry. So it looks like they have given Xavi Alonso a bit more of a say, a lot more of a say, type of players or the individuals he wants. But as you say, it's a clever signing for a change for Chelsea.
Also, 30th of June, so tomorrow is the cut-off date for from a financial perspective. So it will be, you touched on it, will be interesting to see if Chelsea have to do any more business to try and comply with various rules and regulations. One player looks like they are trying to shift is Gusto. I almost fell off my chair when I saw a valuation of £75 million for him. I would love to know how, people sit down and come up with some of these valuations. Sit down in the room. What number are we going to put on Gusto? Oh, £75 million. If you said £35 million, you might think, oh, that's not a bad price, but you wouldn't. It just seems crazy. £75 million for Gusto, who isn't Chelsea's first choice, hasn't been Chelsea's first choice. Yes, he can play left back as well a little bit. Just ridiculous, sort of. And one team I did see linked with him actually today was Man City, because Man City are in the market, I think, for a right back, or certainly have been long term. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see if anything happens before tomorrow.
You don't spend that sort of money on right backs or full backs, because just don't influence the game that much to spend that sort of money on them. But yeah, they'll get 35 million quid for him. It wouldn't be a bad signing for Man City, to be fair, actually, because they're playing Matheus Nunes, who's done all right for them there at right back, but he's not a right back in a million years. And Rico Lewis just hasn't progressed at all.
He's hardly
And
played, to be fair to
he's
that.
hardly played, but they do need a right back.
Any other transfers sort of catch your eye, James?
No, I think now that it's, as you said, the end of the financial year tomorrow for footballers, I think it'll wait now to the end of the World Cup, because they're playing every 3 or 4 days. And I think managers or coaches of the World Cup went, yeah, you can try and get your deal done before start the last 32. They'll do it. Now I think they'll just wait, and they'll probably wait until a couple of weeks after the World Cup so players go on holiday. I don't think we'll see much. I think we'll see some noise going on, because you always do with these people. But apart from that, I don't think you'll see anything. And
It's a weird one. If I was a player, if I'm so like an Anderson, I'd much sooner, as soon as World Cup finishes, get the deal done, and then go on holiday knowing everything's sorted, rather than having a couple of weeks where.
yeah, I'm not talking about Anderson. I'm talking about other
No,
players that we don't know
no,
about.
I know, but I meant other players, right? So if I was a player and I was linked heavily to a transfer, I could understand it not being done during the World Cup, but I sure would want it done ASAP after the World Cup finishes or my team's gone out, so I can then go and prepare for the next season. Because what you don't want to do is have a couple of weeks holiday, come back to pre-season training at your club, and then you're messing around. Are you being transferred or not? And then you've got to move houses, you've got to move everything. I don't know. It just seems before you know it, it's impacting your start to the season.
Yeah, I get it. You just don't know how I don't know how transfers work and things like that. Obviously, payment structures are the big thing nowadays, aren't they? Trying to do it over the course of the length of the contracts. Excuse me for the background noise.
Okay, let's enough football. I think let's talk. Anything interesting happening in cricket, James? Don't think there was it yesterday? England just losing, about to lose another Test match. No, nothing, anything.
Ireland beat India again. So they won their T20 series 2-0. So that was quite an achievement. 1-1 run yesterday. The Women's World Cup, India had to beat Australia at Lords yesterday afternoon, but Australia cruised home. I think they won by 7 wickets. 24,000 at Lords on Sunday afternoon and 21,000 on Saturday night watching England thrash New Zealand, I believe it was. So the Women's World Cup semi-finals are tomorrow. Australia play West Indies and England, I think, are playing South Africa on Thursday. Just double check that for you. And obviously the finals at Lords next weekend. Yeah, England are losing a test match. Who knew? They can't bat, can't bowl, can't field, and now haven't got a captain. Shock. Ben Stokes. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen it before. When an announcement was made at 3:25, he's about to retire, or he has retired, basically. Announced it on all the socials, not on the big screens, and he's still bowling his 11th over spell, and he takes a wicket. It's typical Ben Stokes, really, isn't it? Takes a wicket with the first ball that everyone realised he's going to retire. And then England just threw the game, well, didn't throw the game away. They're way behind the game, 370 behind. Just one special mention. Daryl Mitchell's 100 yesterday. It was one of the best hundreds you're going to see, test match hundreds in a long, long time. He was hit on the body 13 times. He took an almighty blow on the head from Gus Atkinson when he was on about 70 odd. Lucky that for helmets, because otherwise that could have been very nasty. Proper 100, proper test match 100. I'm looking at you, Rob Key, Baz McCullum, and Stokes. But yeah, Ben Stokes retiring. Legends used a lot, but he has transformed England cricket in the last 4 years. And he's just run out of gas. He's just run out of, you can see it in him. I wonder if that incident at Lords was a culmination of this. Was he persuaded to continue at Lords and thought, sod it, I don't really want to be here. He obviously had a bit of a poor judgment. We talked about that before. And he's gone. And the unfortunate thing is, he's gone before McCullum and Key.
So I've got a little theory on this. I suspect that he would have been shocked by the reaction to what happened in terms of breaking that curfew. So whether that be from the lack of support from the ECB, whether it be lack of support from McCullum, lack of support from English fans. And I think he'll have been shocked to his core because I don't think people probably appreciate just how much effort and time and just how just completely absorbing this England job is as captain and has been for him over, no one will know how much effort and time he has spent doing it. And I think he'll feel that there's a real lack of gratitude for what he's done. And I said to you at the time, I thought the whole incident around the curfew, it was almost like the actual crime that was committed as such was made out to be way, way bigger than it actually was. And I suspect he looks back on that and thinks, it wasn't that bad. I've been absolutely stitched up a treat here in terms of both my legacy and everything else. And I've just had enough. I've literally had enough. And honestly, whether it be England fans, whether it be England players, they don't deserve me putting in the time and effort that is required for this. And not only that, but a huge financial sacrifice he's made as well over the years. He could have gone and played all sorts of IPL and things that he didn't do because he wanted to play for his country. And I suspect that that's part of why we're in this situation.
Absolutely. And I think the way he happened after the Lord's Test match, there were big rumours, weren't they? Was really bad English. But anyway, that he was going to retire, and he was just going to retire on that Tuesday or on the Wednesday. And the ECB were frantically trying to ring him, and he just wasn't picking up phone calls, etc. I think he was almost persuaded by his friends and family to make one last effort to come and say, play this Test match, and then he can retire, kind of thing. I think if he didn't want to, he would have just quit there, and not quit, that's the wrong word, retire there and then. He leaves a huge hole in that England side, he really does. And the captaincy, forget about his actual batting, and his batting's obviously gone. That eye injury, I'm sure we won't hear anything about it, but that was a pretty serious, nasty looking eye injury. He just lost the drive as well. But England now, without an all-rounder balancing the side, we saw it last week at the Oval, and our captaincy talked about it. Like, there's a void. There's a void of it, because he can't go back to Joe Root, terrible captain. Harry Brook, I mean, the guy's got an insane amount of ability and talent, etc. His batting, his 9 balls yesterday, some unbelievable strokes, don't get me wrong. But this is a test match, not a knockabout beer match, 2020 after the game when you've had a few pints, the game's finished early. It's disgraceful batting from Harry Brook yesterday. He should be nowhere near the captaincy of the England test match team at all. You can do white ball stuff all over your business. And then who are you looking at? Jacob Bessel? Really? He's only played 9 test matches? Then you're looking outside the squad. Who is there? So there's going to be a massive issue. And you look at England's test matches coming up. You've got Pakistan at home in three match series in late August, early September. And then the slight interesting trip down to South Africa, the reigning world champions. Now, they're not as good as they were, South Africa, but they'll be hard to beat with Rabada and Cone, Janssen. They've just won in India as well. It's going to be a long, long couple of years for the England test team, especially if McCullum and Key keep their job, which they shouldn't do.
I find it extraordinary how Key still has this job. I mean, just, it struck me as bizarre when he got the job in the first place, because he wasn't particularly well qualified for it. And I don't know, it strikes me as insane. But I think if nothing else, I look at from a Stokes perspective, what you just touched on there, things aren't going to get any better for this England team coming up. And Stokes is, potentially quite happy to wash his hands of being associated with what's about to come. It's not like Key can resign. It's going to get ugly. And, you Rob Keys of the world have to take a long, hard look at themselves, because they've been really, really poor. I thought I don't know, did you see the interview with North in terms of, I thought it was really interesting where he was he was asked whether, from his time when he was at Durham, whether he thought the county game wasn't given enough sort of credit by the England team. And his answer was such a PC answer in terms of, oh, no, everything was fine. And, it was such a box ticking exercise where, trying to please everyone. And it was actually an answer that just made me think that unless people are actually able to say what they think, you're not going to get change in that organisation. And things won't be any different for this England team going forward unless, proper people come into that organisation.
England aren't going to win any test match series or any test matches on proper pitches with McCullum and Key in charge. They're just not going to do it. They don't understand test cricket at all. The way they play, they don't bat properly. They don't bat long. Can't bat, as I said, can't bat, can't bowl, can't field. And some of the selections they picked, Sonny Baker. Do you remember Josh Hall a couple of years ago when they gave a test match to him at the Oval and he's bowling 75 mile an hour left arm? It looked like Adam Maladi. Looked like some guy just...
Hold on. Was that Sam Curran?
At least Sam Curran can bat. So, next England captain, future England captain, FEC. But anyway, going back to Stokes, he just, as he said, he did it his way, my way, and that was typified by him coming out, opening the batting yesterday. And I felt like he was just going to go in, and he played proper cricket shots after the first 2 or 3 balls when he was reverse sweeping, Nathan Smith and all. But they've been battered, England, absolutely battered by a New Zealand team that Will O'Rourke's injured as well. So down to 2 bowlers and one's a concussion substitute as well. They're a team, and that's the thing, isn't it? England, a bunch of individuals, and this New Zealand side are a team. So fair
I,
play to New Zealand. But Ben Stokes, by the way, is continuing to play in cricket. So he will play, how long for, don't know, but he said he's going to go back and play for Durham. And then I don't know what his availability is like for the IPL, because they've changed the rules, but there's plenty other 2020 competitions going around the world. Big Bash, take the family down there, could play in America, could play in Dubai. There's plenty of opportunity to go and make some big money. And fair play to him. Why not?
well, why not? I mean, honestly, he's given more than anyone could have asked for England. But yeah, not good times for England. I do think one interesting comment did make me smile a little bit was that obviously Stokes has divided opinions a little bit by making the decision he did when he did, with quite a few people saying how selfish he is and how it's all just about him, and and I would sort of look at it slightly differently, as I say, is just how much time and effort he's put in for England, and it clearly isn't just about him. But one of the things that did make me laugh was when I read comments like, "Oh, England just throwing away test wins by playing like this," and you're going, throwing away test wins, getting absolutely battered in this game, and they decided the only way they would actually have a chance to get a positive result was by going crazy last night in that first session. If you look today, they need 270 runs. If they could have been in a situation where had 8 wickets left, need 250 runs or something like that, they may have had a chance. But it's still a massive, massive ask on this pitch.
Last past lunch. Probably won't last an hour to morning, actually, to be fair.
Um, Wimbledon starts this week. I see Sinner is a very short price favourite, 1.7 on Betfair. I'm not sure I'd be rushing into that type of price on a player who has had sort of injury concerns. And then Sabalenka's the ladies' favourite. It's problem for Wimbledon. It gets lost a little bit in amongst all the World Cup and other sports at the moment. We also had a bit of Formula One at the weekend. We had Russell actually winning a race, sort of closing the gap on his teammate, but it's still a long way behind. It looks like Verstappen. Obviously, Verstappen had a ridiculous record at that track anyway. There's some speculation that Red Bull might be finding a bit of speed again. As continued, I keep seeing chat about Verstappen moving teams, but we'll have to wait and see with that. But yeah, not that. I mean, it's interesting. I'm interested to see what happens with that title race.
Yeah, it was a big weekend for George Russell yesterday. Just getting back on the winning train after not winning since Australia, and seeing Antonelli win 5 back-to-back wins. Yeah, it's a one-team race, isn't it, between Antonelli and Russell? But Verstappen found some pace. Ferrari, it's weird how tracks just don't suit cars, and it didn't suit them yesterday. And so the next race is Silverstone this weekend. So the British Grand Prix is this weekend, and the weather looks good. Although you would like a little bit of rain to spice things up, kind of thing, a little bit. But yeah, so that's this weekend. Only other real sports news over the weekend of big sports was horse racing. The Irish Derby was yesterday. And Kel Surprise, Aidan O'Brien had the 1-2-3. Benvenuto Cellini finally got out of stall, so there's no non-runner incidents there. Beat the Epsom Derby winner Christmas Day and beat Pierre Bonnard, the English raider. Didn't run his race, really. We don't know how good he is. But yes, Aidan O'Brien won. I think it's now 4 consecutive. Ryan Moore was on board Irish Derby. So, and then this week you have sorry for the background noise, you have the Coral Eclipse of Sandow as on Saturday. It's the next big horse race in the UK.
So obviously, lots and lots of sport to look forward to. It's crazy, Sometimes the summers can be a little bit quiet, but obviously with the World Cup football, it's a pretty crazy summer, and it won't be long until we have the Open Golf. I will do a preview with John for that. I mean, just obviously last night in the PGA Tour Golf, we obviously got Scheffler and Hovland coming back this morning, or it'll probably be lunchtime. It's lunchtime our time for sudden death playoff, so be worth watching. But anything else, James?
No, I'm just going to go and clean my boots and get on a plane to Atlanta and hopefully get selected to play right back for England against Congo.
Unfortunately, James, you're playing for Uzbekistan in goal.
Shame. No, all good, Luke. Looking forward to actually the football you said. There's knockout football is always good. And when you watch penalty shootouts and your team's not involved, it's actually quite good fun. So,
James, we're not allowed to talk about penalty shootouts. My daughter had yet more heartbreak with penalty shootouts this weekend. It's a recurring theme with 10-year-old girls. Penalty shootouts. Every tournament, it seems to be so many penalty shootouts, and you end up with just kids crying left, right, and centre. Maybe it's a sign of things to come, but yeah, don't mention penalties, please.
we've got Jordan Pickford in goal. We're fine.
On that note,
On that note, yeah, we'll be back in a week to discuss England against Congo and other sport that's going on. But yeah, we'll put it out on our socials when we'll do the podcast. But yeah, have a good week all, and we'll chat to you soon. Bye-bye.